Welcome to Bring Out Your Badass Self, a movement to break your negative thoughts and habits and instead focus on building each other up and encouraging fearless authenticity.
Each week, we will get vulnerable and share experiences alongside our guests and audience. Come rediscover your inner badass self.
Good morning, badasses.
Good morning.
Hi. DJ Hootie Hoo.
I added the names just so everybody could see them this morning. And as you can see, we have guests today. It is another Unfiltered Perspectives Panel. And today with us, we have Jen Ray coming in on the bottom left. And then on the bottom right, we have DJ Hootie Hoo or Adam Hoots. And so thank you both for joining us today. We're looking forward to a lively conversation today.
Oh, I'm excited. I'm so excited to bring out my badass.
Woo-hoo.
I think you always bring out your badass side, Adam. And I can tell you Jen does as well.
We'll be as good as we can be today.
I love it.
Hopefully a little bad too. You know, we are talking about wild nights, so.
Right.
All right. So as everyone is joining us, please say hello. Let us know that you are here. I do see that there are some people joining us. And so also, as you guys are coming in, a couple of things to keep in mind. Sometimes for some reason, people will add comments and we don't see them live. It's not getting to live stream. What we have sort of found out is that it has to do with Android. So if you're on that Android, get off, get an iPhone. No, just kidding. At least get on a computer. But just know that we may not see your comments until later on. So we want to hear from you. We want to hear you say hello. We want to have some interactive conversations with you today as well. And so today should be a very lively and fun day. And so what I would like to first do is while people are coming in and waking up, getting their coffee and figuring out what's going on, I would like to have some people have our guests introduce themselves. And so maybe DJ Hootie Hoo, can you give us a little bit of an intro to you?
Absolutely, Miss Sarah. I would love to. Thank you for having me here. I am DJ Hootie Hoo on the ones and twos, also known as Adam Hoots. I am a construction person. I grew up in the construction industry, started as a plumber, done a lot of things as a general contractor, lean construction coach, really just care about the people in the industry to the point where I want to share my status rights and privileges with everybody. And so that is kind of who I am becoming, who I've discovered to be such a badass. That is me, Miss Sarah. And I'm super excited to be here because I don't often get to talk about my children in this setting. And so for me, you know, I was really wild, and that turned into having a child or two very soon. And quick transition. And so I'm excited to just talk about that and explore it a little bit deeper with y'all.
I love it.
Mm-hmm.
All right, Jen, do you want to give a little bit of an intro to you?
I will. I'll try and keep it brief. So hello, everybody. My name is Jen Ray. I am a loan officer by day, but I am a thespian at heart. So I like to do fun dance, theater, take me to a show. I like that kind of stuff. I in my past was a bunch of temporary work. I was either temporarily doing clerical work or temporarily doing live shows and behind the scenes and all that kind of stuff. So that's kind of how I met all of my people. So I've met people in multiple worlds and enjoyed every bit of it. So if we're talking badass, I guess just being in different places, different states around different people kind of gives you that opportunity. But I am a loan officer, so I get people in homes. That's what I do. But I really like to focus on the people who think there's no way. And then we just say, hey, apply, and we'll look at it, and this is what we need to fix. So, you know, we can get you there. So that's kind of why I like my job, putting people in homes that otherwise would be like, there's no way. So it's kind of fun.
Yeah.
And I do have to say that the two things that I love about you both is both of you always have high energy, and you guys are just fun. And so that's one of the reasons why I chose both of you for today. For those that are connected to Jen Ray, you also get to see the very fun side of her. I get the privilege of being able to see on her Facebook account, she dances her ass off, just like she just doesn't give a shit and just goes, just throws caution to the wind, but she's also an amazing dancer. Say that again, Jen.
15-second increments. So
she does, but she's an amazing dancer, and I love it because it's really just giving permission to people to just let loose and have fun. And Adam's that way as well. Every time I ever see him, he's just having fun and joking around, but also has that very serious side too.
You've seen my dancing?
Well, not the dancing, although I do want to see that.
Maybe in time. What does Jesse say? Fans only. Yes, fans only.
Instead of only fans only.
All right, we have some people joining us. Let's say hello. And so Jen, so we have J Rowe and we have Jen Ray today.
Oh, I like it.
So Jen Roberts, she is coming in. She says, "Good morning, badass chickas and DJ Hootie Hoo. Happy Friday. By the way, Scott is here with me listening. So he says, hey. So hello, Scott. That's her brother. So
hey, y'all.
Hey.
Thanks for showing up with me, Scott. I love that.
Yes. Oh, manpower.
Oh, well, you have another man. Steve Martin's coming in. He said to tell you to keep it light. He's listening in a hike during the top 10 weather day in the beautiful state of Connecticut.
Yes.
So
no promises, Steve, but we'll do our best to keep it marketeering approved. How's that sound?
Yeah.
I love it. So thank you for joining us, Steve. And then Sandra, she says, good morning to you all. For those that don't know, that's actually my mom. And so Kim, she says, good morning to all of you amazing badasses. Thank you, Kim, for joining us. And Carmen's coming in from California. She's getting up early with us. Good morning, my favorite beautiful badasses.
Good morning, Carmen.
And I am going to go, by the way, she says, by the way, I love your earrings, Jen Ray.
Thank you. Thank you. Look, I'll put a background. Look at that.
All right. Well, let's jump into this topic. So the topic is from wild nights to parenthood. And so we're going to talk a little bit about our wild nights, but the purpose of today's conversation is really to understand the things that we do as parents compared to the things we used to do when we were in our wild state, and how it is that we balance those wild things that we learned throughout the years, and now how we apply them maybe in being overprotective or sometimes maybe the leniency. And so having that type of conversation today. And so with this first question, I also am curious from the audience as well is, how has your identity evolved since becoming a parent? And do you feel you've lost a part of your wild side, or have you found a way to integrate those experiences into your role as a parent? And so, Jen, I'd like to actually start with you if I could.
Hey, okay. So really, so you're asking me how I've changed from then to now being a parent.
And then also how you've integrated potentially that wild self into your role as a parent.
I really think it's the way I look at the world. Like my placement in the world has become different. So back then, and I was, the go-getter who was going to do this, and I had all these ideas and I was pushing it, and I was like, hey, try this, that's so old, but now I've come to a place where I'm like, this is what we've got and this is how we're going to make it work. So my mindset has changed in a sense of now what I've got, I have to make it work because I have a home, I have a child, I have a husband. So the way that I look at things is different, but that spirit is still there. So even though we've got what we've got, we still create better within that as well. I don't know if that makes sense, but as far as like how I've changed, it's just my perception of everything has changed because I'm looking at it through a lens of I'm not first anymore. And so it's like it used to be very, even though I would never want to call myself selfish, I look back in hindsight and everything was very first, very me first, right? So now I just have a lot of people in front of me. So when I look at things, I just look at it differently. Like, if I did this, how would it affect that? Rather than, it's just me, so who cares?
Right. Totally.
Yeah.
Your perspective completely shifts. So it's one of the first things my dad said to me when I told him I was going to have a kid. He said, it's just no longer going to be about you. It's going to be, like your children become the most important thing in your world, and, but doing that without losing yourself, holy shit, that's the trick, right?
Yeah. You still gotta be fun and still be fun with responsibility is really what it is. It's just like the evolution of fun. It's like a little bit of responsibility creeps in there. Yeah. But all the things that my mom used to say, now I'm like, oh my God, put it on a pillow, stack it on the couch. Like, I call her all the time. I'm like, you were right. That's so annoying.
Adam, what are you thinking?
So I think I love what Miss Jen Ray's saying, right? It's a beautiful me to we transition. That's kind of where my head goes. As far as me personally, I don't know that I've really changed a whole lot. I still am very wild and childlike, even with children. I think for me, it was more of like as I began to have children, and again, I did it in a very lean and efficient way with 2 babies, 1 pregnancy. And so it became more of like I am going to learn more about myself through how I guide these children in the world. And it's really hard. It's really hard. And I can't remember where I heard it, but it was not long ago. Somebody told me that I've only been a father for as long as you've been a child. And that really like struck me in a weird type of sense because you have 0 experience and there is no manual other than the what to expect when you're expecting, right? Or at least that's all we had. So it's as far as changing though, I don't know that I've changed. I'm still a little bit selfish, a lot of it selfish sometimes, and working on that.
Yeah. So I have a couple comments that are coming in. I'm going to pull them up and then give you what I think about myself. Bruce says, morning badasses and welcome to this very purple Friday. Loving the purple. And then Carmen said, I was a perfect child, but I'm a helicopter mama.
I love you, Carmen.
Bruce says the wild side was the best part of my parenting, as chaos is the better and most necessary part of genuine nurturing.
I love you. Me and Bruce are cut from the same cloth. I love that guy. Oh.
Yeah.
So for me, it's interesting. I feel like in a lot of ways, I had ups and downs. And I've talked about this before. I feel like in my life, a lot of stuff is roller coaster. Like I feel like I was very responsible early on in life. And like I didn't drink in high school. I actually didn't really even drink in college. I got married early. So like responsibility happened early. It was after the divorce, I went fucking wild. And then, got into another relationship, then went fucking wild. So like the cycle went up and down. So for me, being a parent was more about getting back to some of the wild aspects that I learned about myself, like not being so serious. So for me, it was the opposite. I was serious, got wild, serious, then got wild. And so for me, it's about having fun and finding the inner child within me is really, it's a somewhat the opposite of what most people have experienced in life.
Yeah. Like you don't have to be boring and responsible. You can be responsible and fun.
Exactly.
Uh-huh.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So,
100%.
by the way, Bruce says, love you too, Adam, my brother. And by the way, Jen said, my brother wants me to tell you, Jen Ray, that he loves your earrings too and would dance with you.
I'm gonna wear these for the same amount of time as that sticker, Kate. I'm gonna wear these 4 days, 5 days straight. They're not coming off.
And there he is. Now he's here.
I don't think anybody knows what that sticker's all about yet, do they?
Oh, yeah.
Don't, but we're going to get there. So, talking about responsibility, let's talk about spontaneity and responsibility. So, how do you balance the desire for spontaneity with responsibility of parenting? And are there ways you've managed to keep that adventurous spirit alive?
Yeah, like, so this is something that I've grown to really love about myself, that my kids and my wife have pointed out over the years. You know, I've remained very silly. I have no desire to not be silly. You know, I have to be serious at work a lot of the times, but I'm also not that serious at work either. You know, unless I'm talking to a client, if I, you know, so I will do the most ridiculous things and have a good time. So one of the most recent examples is my 9-year-old is obsessed with Legos, as am I. And he put a Lego piece sticker on the back of my head. He put this on Monday, and I've kept it on. And when he put it on, he was just like, let's see how long you can keep that on. And it wasn't like a challenge. Like, he wasn't like, let's see. I just quietly, like in my head, I thought, oh yeah, game on. And so then the next morning he woke up and I was like, hey, guess what? I showed him my head and he was like, oh, you know, and then it just got funnier and funnier because I figured out how to shower without it coming off. And, you know, and we went outside and I always wear a hat. So there was like lots of talk about like, maybe it'll rub off on the hat, or what'll happen, Mom, when your hair starts growing back? You know, it's just, now it's a topic between, you know, the 3 younger kids in the house, and they're loving it. And I think it's
I would say it's a testament to your parenting as well. You obviously parent like a boss, like no sweating, like you just doing it, not nervous.
Oh,
no
yeah.
sweat. that sticker would fall right off of me. I'd be like, sweat, oil.
Oh yeah. You know, I have been through, as a parent, Jen and I have been through so much that very little really actually bothers us now. You know, like, you know, because like when you've been to like the depths of your soul, it feels like, and helping kids with special needs or helping kids with big mental health issues, you know, huge mental health things. And then you come out on the other side, you just have so much understanding of like just like when you go through any trauma, but when you go through it as a parent,
yeah,
and you make it out the other side, it just puts things in perspective. Like, you know, so much in perspective. So we learn from our older ones down, right? So like our older ones have put us through more, or we put ourselves through more, like as younger parents. Like, I share that responsibility too. But like, that's something to say is, as I've aged and chilled out more and more and more, I can see that, you know, we're going to all make it through. We're going to get there. It's the road's going to be bumpy at times, but it's always going to be okay, you know, and that's kind of how we've ended up living.
And I can share with you that having met the majority of Kate's kids, they actually came to the cabin. My husband is like very responsible, and also easily annoyed. And so, just, you know, having him chill out, because her kids like to have fun, and they are a little wild. It's
Really
so,
fair.
so, around, people that need that control, they're going to have a little bit of a harder time.
That's
And one of the things that Cate and I always agreed upon is that I don't really care if my child cusses. Like, that's not a bother for me. But I also let her know the impact that it may have. Like, as you start to say these words, just know that they're going to become easier to say. And there are certain places that you will, that other places that will say that's unacceptable. So you have to be able to accept the consequences that if you say those things, you might also get in trouble. So it's balancing the two of giving freedom to be free with me, but also knowing that not everyone in society feels the same way. And so that's how I've sort of balanced the two together. And Jen, I think you have thoughts on maybe that
No,
one.
it's not. And again, like my thoughts are always just in my house. But Brace, I don't like for Brayson to cuss, and I think it's just because he doesn't understand. Because every and it's not necessarily because I don't like him cussing. It's really because, do you understand the whole implication of how you say it? He's also a boy, so when he gets 15 and he throws a cuss word at me, and it's if it's with a big tone and like, I don't want him using foul language when he's angry. So I don't want to create a habit little, because we say love all the time. It's like love, every 5 seconds, mommy, I love you, So I'm gonna have to work on that too, because I don't want you just throwing that out there, putting your heart on your sleeve. But, but yeah, it's really just because you don't know the whole realm of what you're saying. I just don't like for him to cuss. He's still my little clean slate, and I'll keep him as childlike as I can until, the days when he just shuts himself in his room and doesn't want anything to do with me. but for now, he's my sweet little buddy, and he doesn't. I mean, he literally, I think we were talking about this, like even crap. He obviously thinks it's spelled with a K, but he's like, you scared the K out of me. And I'm like, Brayson, what does that mean? He's like, crap. So he's even spelling okay words incorrectly. So we're fine.
How wild were you, Jen Ray, when you were younger with the cursing?
You know what? When I was young, I did not curse. I created a cursing habit probably, I would say, in my late teenage years, college years. I create, and I'm just a colorful speaker. Like, I fucking love you. You know what I mean? Like, but I'm also, I have that bit of into me that I work on. Like, I have a little temper. So those are things within myself. I make sure I want him to be better than me at things that I was bad at. So that's why for me, my cussing was so regular that sometimes I'm like, Jen, put a little, to your speech sometimes, or, kind of, because I can be sharp tongued. Like I think you were saying that, Cate, right? Wasn't that you saying that you could be sharp tongued? Well, who was saying they could be sharp tongued?
Sarah was saying that about my kids because we all swear.
Oh, okay. I was like, is that me in my head? But no, so like I don't ever want to get mad at somebody and use curse words.
Right.
Some people, that freaks them out, and it can be very, so I just don't want him to create any habits. But I wasn't super wild. But I was a cusser. I was a little sailor. I'm still working on that. I'm still working on it. Don't judge me. There'll be a couple of slip outs.
Yeah. We, our kids, we just have, we homeschool our kids. So our kids are, unique to begin with, right? Yeah. And they have a unique environment. So we really, really enforce, what we do take very seriously is treating each other with kindness and having healthy conversations when you're pissed off, Right. That's what we work really hard on. But a lot of the stuff that some parents, worry about, we don't as much, we don't worry about like food as much, and as long as they're getting nutrition.
Right.
But the swearing is just, it's just always been a part of who we are. And they do know to not do it in public, because that's been kind of one of our rules as well, is if you offend people, our goal in life is not to purposefully offend people, right? Sometimes you can't control that. But, if you, are out in the world, people could take offense to that, and you just have to know, you have to understand that. That doesn't mean that you make the choice to not do it. You just at least have to understand the implications of what it's like to.
Just to be clear, like, we are not offended by people who cuss. Like, I cuss all the time. I literally have to stop myself and be like, Brayson, mommy's working on this, and you know that. No, it's not a thing. Like, it's not. I'm not saying we don't cuss around our child, because we have a serious issue with cussing. I just don't like for him to cuss. So when I cuss, I'm like,
right.
So no, we cuss around him all the time. Like, my friends, I'm like, he's heard worse. You're fine.
Adam, I saw a micro expression when Cate said something. What are your thoughts?
I think we're stumbling into something really big here. And I just want to say, before I say anything else, that I think it's been proven that, like, the world's most intelligent people curse more often or something along those lines.
Yeah, it has been. Yeah.
But I also think, and I'm guilty of this too. I don't want my kids cussing in public, but I cuss in public, or I don't want them getting mad or throwing a tantrum, but I get mad or throw a tantrum in public. And
exactly.
I think there's a deeper thing here as we're talking about being wild into having a child. Like, if who you are and like you just said, Kate, hey, we're cussers. Like, we cuss in this house. But our goal is also not to offend people. So are you suppressing who you are to not offend people? And if you are, what kind of message does that send to a child? And again, I'm so guilty of this. I'm like reflecting on it myself of, oh my goodness, like 9 times, whatever. I'm just curious, like, if we're telling them be yourself here, but be somebody else there, what does that do?
I think it's also being respectful. Like, it's, when I don't know if it's necessarily repressing ourselves, but sometimes we need to understand that other people have other perspectives. And sometimes it's also being respectful of those individuals. And so for me, I don't necessarily see it as repressing myself. I see it as I'm going to respect this other person because I care about this other person. And that's something that bothers them, just like anything else. And so it's ultimately just about having a mature relationship and being mindful of the things that you do for people that you care about. That's my perspective on that.
Yeah.
I think it's sort of like learning the importance of knowing how to be generic until you can brand within whatever area you're in. Like, I can brand with anybody, but I'm going to walk in generic because I got to feel it out. Things you want to be okay with. And I want you to know, like, if I do offend you, cool, we got that out of the way. Now I know I don't need to do that. But please, by all means, don't kick me out of the room, because I have no idea. Just yesterday, I was over here and it didn't bother anybody. So I think, I think you have another question about mistakes. I think mistakes are necessary for the purpose of, how do I know what's right unless I know what's wrong? So
yeah. So Kate, I want to give you an opportunity to close the loop with Adam's question.
Yeah. So I love that, Adam. That is something that I've thought a lot about as well. Like, because. So how I look at it is, our reality in life is that we have to repress certain parts of ourselves, like a lot of the time, right? Like, for instance, to just fit in, like, I would prefer to never wear clothes. Like, that would be my preference, right? But I can't, like, like, my wife doesn't like, my kids are starting to not like it. I have to wear clothes. And that's just a part of, like, surviving in society, I've realized, and that's fine. So there's things like, that's the message I'm trying to impart on my kids is, I don't want to purposely, it's never my intent to offend someone, right? It's not my intent to go out there and be like, oh, look at me, I'm a big, bald lesbian with a tattoo on my head and in your face, right? Like, some people, I think, feel like that's what I'm doing sometimes, or they've even said that to me. Like, oh, you're just your sexuality or your presence is so, like, there. So there's always a balance of, like, being yourself, respecting the world around you, and whether we like it or not, there's always little parts of us that we do have to repress, or we feel we have to repress. And I think finding the balance between, what are the things that you absolutely have to do in order to feel authentic, and what are the things that you can compromise on a little, right? So for us, the swearing, and blasting really loud rap music because our whole household really loves it, yeah, like those things, yeah, we won't, like, when we're hanging out with grandma and grandpa, we probably will not, show her how much of the song Not Like Us that we have memorized, as a family. We won't drop Cate and start blowing shit up, but we'll pick our battles. That's kind of the perspective that we have.
Yeah, I love it. And to me, I think it comes with a huge disclaimer as you guys are talking to your children. I love how Sarah brought respect into it. I just wonder how many times we as parents don't do that or think about that impact. And the other thing that I'll just say is, Cate, I love what you just said. Like, I've been told I have an aura about me, right? And so suppressing that enough to allow other people's aura to come out as well, I think is how you just reframed it in my head. So thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome. And one of the things I really love that you said, which is something that I hold near and dear, that I think too many parents forget, is that a lot of the times, like Jen Ray, you said it, you want your kiddo to do better than you, right? But the truth is that we all say shit we don't want to say when we're mad. We all throw temper tantrums. We all do these things, right? And sure, the kids, their brains aren't yet developed. So there are definitely differences, but it's also just like being human and not seeing those differences when it comes down to the raw emotions, because we all have them. And just because I'm 40 years older than you doesn't mean that they're hidden different, right? They're hitting me just as hard as they hit you. And there's got to be some mutual respect there for us to kind of, I think, coexist.
And I think the important fact of a thing that you said is that when we do make those mistakes, it's also acknowledging them and going to your kids and saying, I fucked up. And here's, I apologize for the emotions that I allowed to come out. I should have handled it this way, or, letting them know that it's okay to make mistakes, and we're not perfect individuals as well. And so that sort of leads me, go ahead.
You just connected a big dot in my head, because what ends up happening is when you don't have that conversation and don't own it and don't show responsibility, that child fills in the story and why it didn't happen. And then guess what? We got a bunch of adults roaming around this land with these stories that they've created themselves because their parents, myself included, haven't owned their shortcomings on. And so now you have the child filling in a story who's anyway. Just hit me.
It leads into the next question that I have, which is really about mistakes and growing. And so what role do you think making mistakes plays in both parenting and personal growth? And how do you approach teaching your children about the importance of learning from their missteps? Jen, what are your thoughts?
I like to put it very upfront. Like my biggest, one of my biggest flaws is I will try anything. I like to think out loud. I like to talk through my thoughts. So with that type of a personality, I've gotten to my thoughts on this because I've been all over, right? But along the way, there's going to be mistakes made. I'll say something that maybe later I would have regretted. I'll do something that maybe later I would have regretted. I'll react in a way that I've regretted. So self-reflection is really big for myself. And I do enjoy self-reflecting about myself with my kiddo. So I I am a big believer in, I'm most comfortable around people who have made many mistakes, because I feel that people who aren't comfortable talking about their mistakes are going to judge me for mine. So yeah, so I am most comfortable in a room full of mistakers. But
Yes.
but my most favorite part of parenting is talking through mistakes. That's my favorite part of parenting. You know, with little man, you know, forgiving himself, forgiving others. Like, I'll even, when we have a conversation, it'll spark in me, and then I'll call somebody that I hadn't talked to in years and be like, you know, you were probably right. Like, just things that will peep in my mind. I'm like, man, I remember being so mad at my aunt for saying something so stupid. But now I look at it and I'm like, I see her whole perspective now, because I'm her age now. You know what I mean? So it's just a lot of that kind of stuff when you just self-reflect and make the parallels. But with Grayson, even if he's having a problem with somebody at school, it's even reflecting on them and where they're coming from. And by no means is this about you. Like, he's learning just as you are. Like, this stuff right now, if you learn how to deal with it, it just doesn't matter, because this is growth for everybody. You know, like, when you're in an environment full of people making mistakes, you're all growing and you're all going to be different in the future. So you just kind of deal with it, you know?
Yeah.
But yeah.
I want to share a story that goes to this. And so, with kids making mistakes and then helping them with self-reflection, I had a situation where my daughter, I had to take her phone away. And I know. And from that, she kept getting text messages, and her phone was just going off. And I was like, I need the code so I can get in, so I can shut off your phone. And she's like, you don't need that. And I was like, yes, give me the code. And so she gave me the code. I got in there and I was like, okay, well, that's peculiar. Like, that makes me wonder, like, what do you have in there? Well, what I found is that she had associated with my name the word bitch. And but she was what I found out is that they were being funny. It was a friend of hers, but it very much hurt my feelings whenever I saw that. And I asked her, I said, why do you have this? And she was like, you know, like, she didn't know what to say. And I said, I'm going to need a moment. And so I left. And I left her by herself, and I went and spent some time just thinking about the situation. I actually called a friend and talked to her a little bit, who also had daughters, and it helped me to self-reflect. And so I went back to her and I said, look, I said, I understand that sometimes we make choices that we think might be funny. We also need to understand that sometimes the choices we make might actually hurt other people unintentionally. And I said, so when I saw that, I was very much hurt. And I said, and I do know that you love me, but when you have a word like that associated with me, can you imagine how that makes me feel? And so I had her, like, self-reflect how it is that she, you know, you might think it's funny, but you're actually did something that actually can be very hurtful to other people. And I said, so it's very important that when we're doing things, we're mindful of how we're potentially impacting other people. And I said, you know, we're good. I love you. I just need you to understand that that you putting that next to my name isn't acceptable. And so she, like, gave me a hug, and she's like, I'm so sorry. She's like, Mom, like, you're the best mom ever, you know, like, you know, all of those types of things. And so I needed her to understand, like, that's not, you know, that's something that can be very hurtful to people, even if you're meaning it in a joking way.
Yeah, I agree with that. I absolutely agree. I think there's a difference between, if I can pinpoint it, right? Like, if she has you associated with bitch, right? It's like a ramification of how people see how she views you.
Yeah.
So anytime there's conversations about you, her friends will, you know what I mean? Like I do feel that like anytime, like Brayson, how you speak about me when I'm not in the room, it does matter to me.
Yeah.
That does matter. Even with my friends, that matters to me, because how you preface your feelings about me is going to every conversation had about me. When if we have a moment, we're having an argument. So you're going and you're talking to your friends, or even with dad, since he's a boy, like, I don't need your friends saying, yeah, you remember your dad's an idiot anyway. Like, no, you know what I mean? So that would be tough. Like, how'd she have it? So you were in her phone as not mom, but.
Yeah, it was something bitch or something like that, or biatch, or, you know, like something along those lines, you know. And I was just like, whoa. And she was meaning it jokingly. And I'm like, that's, you know, like, if that's how you're thinking about me, we need to, you know, and then I think that's also what I talked to her about. I'm like, if you're feeling that way about me, I need to understand why it is you're feeling that way about me. But it was actually, personal growth wise, I was very proud of myself for not just going fucking off on her and going, I need a minute. And it says something like, I was like, I need a minute. And I went and processed it.
Was it bitch or was it biatch? I mean, that's a huge.
I think it was bitch. And so, yeah.
I was like, this is very different. This is, you know.
Yeah. Adam, what do you think?
Sharing that, Sarah, like, that's vulnerable to share. Like, that moment, you know, I get that. I would have a hard time with that as well. But I think, you know, you handled it, like, just having a heart to heart with her is probably what you needed to do. And it sounds like how it went, you know.
She's 13, right? 13?
Yeah.
Okay.
This was 3 years ago, I think.
Oh, at 10?
Yeah.
Oh my goodness.
I'm more curious on what happened when you kind of took the moment. Like, what did you do? How long was it? Like, oh my goodness.
It was a good half hour that I really just spent some time thinking about it. And then I actually was able to call a friend, and I was like,
did you call Amy? I would have called Amy.
I did. That's exactly what I called. And she's like, girl, she's like, I know. And she helped me to, like, you know, I was like, this is how I'm feeling. And she's like, I know. And, you know, I talked it through with her, and it helped me from a perspective, you know, from to start to think about things. And she was like, you know, this is a good opportunity to go have a good conversation with her. And I was like, you're right. You know, and so, but me taking that extra time instead of like immediately going off on her, plus she's up there by herself, thinking, oh shit, you know, like, what is about to happen? She's having to also self-reflect on the actions that she took. And so sometimes that split of not going off on someone and saying, we both need time to think about our actions before we escalate things, then it allowed us to be much more reflective as we communicated with each other.
You're saying that she was 10, so I'm trying to, because Brayson's 9, so I'm trying to figure out if he did that, like what my initial, if I had his.
She might have been 11, and so I'm trying to think. I think it was 6th grade, and so.
But you model, when you know, modeling even the break, you know, modeling that, like, when you feel your emotions, you know, rise, that it's perfectly okay to say, I need a moment. In fact, it's like helpful. You know, like, you did that better than probably I would have. If it was my son, it would be a major issue if he had that. And I'd be like, this I'd be like, buddy, you have to sit down because this is not okay. Like, if I'm doing something wrong, if this is how you're talking to me about me to your friends.
Yeah, I was actually very proud of myself for taking a moment and leaving. So
yeah.
Adam, what are you thinking? I see your wheels turning.
You should be proud of yourself, because that's really, really hard. I think for me personally, it's when I would experience something like that, I think it would be easier for me to shut it down. When I go nuclear, it's over just little things, right? Like things that don't really matter, and I don't shut it down at that point. And so I'm just you've got me self-reflecting over here on just my own personal journey. Thank you, Miss Sarah.
I have to tell you, having kids or having Riley has helped my journey and personal growth, because I'm unlearning so many things in my life on things that I feel like society didn't teach us, and some of the negative things that they taught us. My daughter, I don't know where she gets stuff, but she actually has continued to grow and be an amazing, wise child. And I'm like, where are you getting this? Like,
I think I might know, but I don't know.
You're right. She's getting it from you guys. You know, I feel like we all like go into parenting, you know, wanting to do the very best, and parenting ends up being a huge effort of regulating emotions, you know, on a daily basis, because like your hearts are like in these kids, right? So like you're so fucking connected to them, you know, that it is your emotions. Like everything they do hits you, you know, so much more deeply. For a long time, I went nuclear over tiny things on a regular, Adam. Like I had, you know, two emotions, like happy or like fucking flaming pissed off. Right. And I had a really hard time understanding the gray area in between and recognizing like the warning signs, even the things that I was feeling inside, because I got to the point where I was like, okay, I'd like to stop doing this. I'd like to stop being pissed off because like my kid left a towel on the floor. Like I'd like to not feel like they are trying to kill me. Like when I saw that, I was like, okay, so somebody clearly wants me fucking dead, because this is unacceptable. You know, like that's how I would feel inside, right? Like, and it's, you know, it's so, it doesn't make any sense. There's no reason for that, right? So I had to like really get in touch with like, what else is going on with me that I have such a strong reaction to this, you know, and like really dig in deeper to understand. And what it came down to is getting aware of like myself and really who I am and how I want, what my values are and how I want to operate. And, you know, that's a total huge simplification of like a lot of things, but, you know, I get it. I totally get it 100%, because that's, you know, what it is to coexist with other humans, but also to have to, you know, be the person you want to be with all those other humans.
I know that's a good learning experience for you, but that's also a good experience for your child. So yeah. Losing your crap over a towel, it is not because of that towel. It is because you have consistently said, pick up your towel, put it on the hook, it gets dirty on the floor. So when I've done that, like just the other day, like my kid loves destroying the living room. Pillows everywhere, blankets on the ground, you know, just, I don't know. He has to sit in every spot. And sometimes he's a boy, so he's dirty, right? And I literally was putting it together and I saw like I was like, where is this coming from? And I'm down there with my Lysol wipes and I looked at him, I said, listen, Brayson, and this is what I said, I do cuss with my kiddo, even though I don't let him cuss. I said, I'm losing my shit right now, Brayson. Come in here. I want to talk to you. I said, listen, I know that I need to be better at how I'm reacting right now, but I also want you to know why this reaction is happening. I tell you all the time, if I give you every effort to care about my feelings and you continue to ignore that option, you will get here. So outside of these doors, you're not going to have mommy. You're going to have other people, and they will give you every opportunity to take those cues of what is kind to them. And if you ignore them, they will also lose their shit on you. So don't beat yourself up. Girl, it's okay. If he keeps putting it on, if they keep throwing the towels on the floor. But anyways.
Oh gosh.
This literally happened yesterday. So like in my mind,
you triggered Jen. Like she's like
totally.
all right. I'm going to pull up some comments that are coming in. So, apologizing to your kids also gives them an example of how to apologize.
Yes.
I love that. And then Maria, coming in from YouTube, also says, children don't give you a hard time. They're having a hard time.
Yeah.
Ooh.
Behavior is communication,
Mm.
which is so hard, you know, and because especially when you have like an overstimulating environment, right? And you're paying attention to your partner's behavior, or, you know, multiple kids' behaviors or your own behavior, right? Like there's a lot to focus on and a lot of communication coming your way to try to decipher.
Yeah. For me, I hear you guys on the towel thing. It really bothers my husband as well. I don't really give a shit. But now we're having to share the bathroom because our bathroom is leaking, and so we're no longer using it. We're waiting for it to get fixed. So we're now having to use my daughter's bathroom for showers and things like that. So now I do care because as I'm going in, it doesn't bother me. I know it bothers him. So I've had to have conversations with her. Adam, close your ears. All males, close your ears. With the feminine time of the month, I'm also like having to give her the, explanation of you gotta like wrap up your shit so people don't see your stuff. And, things like that, those conversations. And I'm like, like, do you really want your bra and underwear to be, shown as your dad's coming in? Like, so I'm like, I'm giving it to her in a way that it's like, do you want this? Is that
right?
really what? So somehow you have to make it, what I have found with accountability is it has to be self-accountability. Mm-hmm. And so what is it that within your son you could do to make it where he is self-accountable to picking up the towel? For us, picking up the towel, it's an annoyance because it's something within us that annoys us. For me, it doesn't bother me, but I know it bothers my husband. So it's figuring out within ourselves why it is we're triggered, and then also how do we help them to be self-accountable is one of the things that I have found. So I have a little bit of a different perspective on that.
I think it's not towels. I'm just saying whatever it is that you don't like as a parent, and you've said it over and over and over, and they're not getting it. I can understand losing your mind, right? Yeah. So, but
I just say to my husband, in the big scheme of things, I'm not all too worried about about these things.
Whatever it is that you're talking about with your kids, we can't say it in such a way that they perceive it as like, is this a weird conversation? No, it's just a normal conversation. That's why when I talk to them, I'm like, dude, get over here. We're gonna have this conversation real quick. I'm losing my mind because, buddy, I've told you this is a normal conversation. I'm not going to preface it with anything because I don't want you to feel like these are weird conversations. You're learning, little dude. Like, you're learning so much right now. You're going to mess up, and I'm going to tell you over and over and over until you habitually know, pick up the towel or whatever it is.
Are you helping the future wife? Is that what you're doing?
Yes, yes. Listen, I pay more attention to how he is to the sweet little girls at school because, boy, I was picked on as a little girl, man. I had headgear and the big old rose glasses. I had curly hair, didn't know how to fix it. So he's really sweet.
So I really like what you're saying, Miss Jen Ray, because you're talking about like you care personally about your boy and you're going to challenge him directly to pick up the towel, and I respect the heck out of it. And I also feel that there's like this experiential learning thing that has to happen. And you just saying, right, if that's the consequence, clearly it's not working, right? And so, but I love this example because it's like your end goal is to get him to pick up the towel.
Yeah.
And saying it's not working. So what else can be done to get him to pick up that towel or clean that kitchen or close the drawers or whatever? And And so feel free to answer if you want. It's kind of rhetorical, but
I mean, I'm literally trying to figure it out.
yeah, well, but I think there's
It's all trial and error over here, Adam.
yeah, I think there's this thing in our society though where it's like we've been taught to just test, and it's like, hey, I tell you to do this and you just test to do this
To
versus
see if you can get away with it. Yeah, absolutely.
yeah, but there's this evolution of we've got to teach people to think. And one of the things that, again, how I met Sarah is through this emotional bungee jumpers group, and that group is specifically designed to help to unlock other people's thinking.
Yes.
And so again, going back to the towel example, it's really, if you tell me to pick up that towel, being a boy, being one of those stinky, dirty boys that by the way, I have twin daughters, so I know all about everything. I think feminine wise, maybe not. I'm sure they've probably not everything.
Actually,
But I hope not. Oof.
Yeah.
But again, so the question is, right, how do we get him to self-discover how to pick up that towel or why that towel needs to be picked up? And there's this element of getting him to think about that, or again, just using my own examples, like we don't pass the test here. Like we don't figure out how to spell the words here. We got to know what the words mean in order to use them. And I think there's this part for me of being a parent where it's like, hey, here's these words and here's how you spell them and just like do this, versus like, hey, here's these words and this is what these words mean. And once you get familiar with the meaning and you start to use them, then maybe you figure out how to spell them.
Well, if we're talking about getting deep on that, like I was just talking about how like it drives me nuts when my kiddos like messes everything up. But if we're talking on a deep level of things, and we can take an example of like hitting, right? Brayson's never been a hitter or a biter because I'm very literal when I talk to my kiddo. So Brayson, there's a reason why when you get angry that we as humans have the ability to speak. We are the only species that can speak our thoughts. And we have been blessed that we can speak our thoughts so that we do not have to hit. We don't have to show that we're angry. We have to use our words and talk people through our thoughts, because when you get bigger as a boy, you will hurt people.
Yeah.
If you ever get into the habit as a little, like I would tell him this at 3, 4, if you ever get into the habit of getting mad at mommy and hitting her, one day you will truly hurt her. And I know that you love me. I don't want you to hurt me and then accidentally get in this. We don't hit people. We just do not hit people. It is a last resort, because you're going to become very powerful one day with the way that you can use your body. And that's why we have brains to speak. So like if we're talking literal, yeah, I do literally speak him through things. Like if we wanted to add it to the towel, like again, as you get older, you're going to start to smell. Like we don't put it on the ground, it gets dirty, and then you wipe off and you still smell. Like we just, because again, he just learning. He doesn't know that stuff. Throwing it on the floor.
Yeah. And again, by no means, like, I don't know what we're talking about, quite honestly, but when you just said biting, like you just reminded me of when I was young, my twins bit each other. That's all that's how they fit. And I'm talking teeth. Bad. And we were no biting, stop biting. Like, what are you doing? And so what ended up happening is, and again, we like exhausted research on this biting thing because it was a serious problem.
Yeah.
And we found a book that was, and I don't remember much of the book, but I can remember this. We used to read it to him. And every time, the book must have been called Ouch, Biting Hurts, because every time it came to like somebody bit each other, we'd grab them and we'd go and sit them down and we would read them that book and we'd be like, ouch, biting hurts.
Yeah.
That's why we don't bite. And so it wasn't the like, and you just said it beautifully, like with the towel thing and the other example that you brought in. It's like you didn't tell him like, don't hit me, don't hit me, don't hit me. You explained kind of that why.
The ramifications.
And not just passing that test. And at least again, for myself personally, I feel like I missed the boat a lot of times on taking the time to explain things enough so that it gets their mind turning, or maybe it's asking the right questions, so it gets their mind turning to self-discover, hey, maybe I shouldn't hit, or
Isn't it wild how we all talk about the phase of why, and it's like this big ongoing like joke amongst parents, but they really need to know why, so that their brain remembers. Like
well,
my kid asks why on
Yeah.
deeper
everything.
than that, I think they have to self-discover why. Like, I don't like, you can't tell. Kanye has a great song. I know
Yes.
it's with me. You can't tell me nothing, right? Like,
Right.
you literally cannot tell me nothing.
Right. Yeah.
It's funny. My daughter said the exact same thing the other day. So my husband has said that his son is very coachable. So when he is playing sports and things like that, he's like, he listens to me. He absorbs what it is that I'm saying. He applies what it is I'm saying. He's like, I can't tell Riley anything. And she says, like, I don't want anybody to tell me. I want to discover it myself. That is what she has said. And I actually love that, because she's going to learn through mistakes. And that's an amazing way to learn things.
See, go ahead, Kate. I know. Go ahead.
I wanted to circle back to something that Adam and I think you guys were all talking about, is how do we get them to like internalize that and make it a priority for them. And something I just want to toss out there, because I've had a lot of success with it, even at very young ages, is opening it up to the conversations about it. So like how I ended up, getting to the point where I would lose my shit over the towel to like now, what I ended up being able to do is be like, okay, so here are the things I've tried to get you to see that this is important to me. You're forgetting, right? Because it's not important to you. I get that, or you don't care, or it's a limit that you want to push, or whatever, but like, what do you think you could do to make it important to you? Or how can we solve this issue? And like putting it on them, like, so even with Breland, when she does something like, okay, remember, you're not supposed to touch the wall with mud on your hands, and you did it again. So how do you think we're going to help you remember that? And then she has to come up with the idea, like, so almost like setting up her own natural consequence, instead of us being like, you're going to get a timeout again if you do this, yeah, she'll still get the timeout. But we have the conversation where it's like, how can she make the moves? So I would just, don't be afraid to have those types of conversations with your kids too. Like where, just put it in their court, similar to like, and they'll tell you who they are and what they want.
Yeah.
And the thing that that really annoys me sometimes that parents do is because I told you so. And for me, that is one of the things that annoys me the most, is because it is our job to be able to explain to kids why things are important, or, our perspective, so then they can start to think about things in their own way. Because ultimately, a part of growth is having them to be able to think for themselves. And if they don't understand the why in things, then we are telling them that their opinions don't matter, that they're whatever,
the world does enough of that on its own.
Exactly. Right. And so that's why I tell my husband, like, explain it to her. I'm like, I know that you're annoyed that you have to explain it to her, but here's why you need to explain it to her, because she needs to connect why it is you're telling her to do that to the reason, so she can then comprehend it, and she can then use that further, because we're teaching them to be adults. Like, we can't just say, I told you so for the rest of their life. They need to have that understanding later on in life.
Yeah. So I teach lean construction to people, and what you're telling, like, the classic mistake of teaching lean construction is teaching them a tool and not teaching them the first principles. Because if you teach the first principles, they can use them over and over and over again in their own situations.
Right.
Yeah.
I do use that term, so guilty of that. but I will say, it works though, because we self-reflect. But if we are in, because I tell Brayson, I say, when I say something to you and it is a quick stop, I don't need you to ask me why in that moment. In that moment is because I said so, and I am the leader of this family when daddy's not around. If daddy says stop, you stop immediately because we are keeping you safe. You don't know. Don't ask the question why if we're in an immediate situation. We will talk about it later, because if we're out in public, I don't have time to argue with you in public and make people uncomfortable, make you feel uncomfortable and feel weird. Stop. We'll talk about this later. So, as I said,
but I think the second part is the most. But the second part is the most important part. Is that stop. We'll talk about this later. You're still saying we'll have this conversation, not do this because I said, and don't ask any questions later on.
Exactly. Because I always tell him, I'm like, Brayson, I will never disrespect you or embarrass you in front of people. You will not do it to me. That's just the rule.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Don't embarrass mommy. Don't act like you don't listen to me. Don't play that game with me. So, yeah, because we're going to say, no to anything that's not imperatively like harming him.
So we're talking about encouraging open conversations and candid conversations with our kids. Do you think it's also important to share your wild nights with them as well? The things that were wild about you?
In age-appropriate ways.
I was going to say, I'm not there yet. But I remember specific, I have specific memories of being his age, and I share those all the time. I share all of them, how I felt in the moment and how I remember the feeling. And I share with him how I look at it now and what it means to me now, looking back at it. Like in the moment, I said, Brayson, in the moment when you're having this problem with, say, because there's a kid named Grayson, and they back and forth. And I told him, I'm like, Grayson, probably what he's saying, you may be interpreting it differently because you guys are very different. Mm-hmm. You guys have very different ways. I mean, you have different friends. You're on different ends of the hallway. You only see each other at lunch, right? So in the moment, you probably think he doesn't like you or he doesn't think you're funny or whatever he's saying. And just quickly, I'm just going to tell something I said, just if he's telling you your jokes aren't funny, just take it literal and just say, you know what? He doesn't think my jokes are funny. I'm either not going to tell him any more jokes or I'm just going to come up with a really great joke. And he goes, okay, that makes sense. So he came home from school one day. He goes, I got Grayson a laugh. And I said, what did you say? And he goes, Grayson, I have a really great joke. And I don't know how to take this because I have a really great joke or whatever. And I can't remember it because I think I shared this with you. This is a while back. And he goes, something to the extent of like it was a joke at his expense for Grayson to laugh at. And I was like, there you go, bud. There you go. You absolutely owned it. So, you know what I mean? So that's what I'm saying. Like, so sometimes just explaining, I was a nerd too, buddy, and I turned out all right. You're fine. Just because you're sweet.
He pulled the classic 8 Mile Eminem. I'm going to turn it all around.
Yes.
I have a great joke. Brayson's stupid.
Awesome.
So, Adam, what about you? Do you think it's important to share your wild nights? Now, you have 2 daughters. Do you share things about your past with them?
So I love Cate's answer right away. Like age appropriate is so important. And I think that's one of the best parts about the kids growing up. This past year, my daughters both went to prom with their senior boyfriends. They were juniors. And we've met them and they've been around them for a while. And so me and my wife sat them because they came to us and they said, hey, we want to stay out all night. And we were like, okay, this has never happened. They're 17, right? They're 3 months from being 18. Yeah, like they've had serious boyfriends. They wanted to rent an Airbnb and they wanted their boyfriends to stay there. And it's like, okay, we get it. They're growing up. And so we sat them down and honestly, we had a pretty amazing conversation about, our prom nights and the things that typically happen on prom night, especially when you stay out overnight. And understanding who's drinking and where the house was, and hey, you can call us, we'll be there. Here, if the cops come, don't run. Like, just don't touch any alcohol, have it all away from you, and don't say anything until your father gets there. Like, those are the thing, like, we had those conversations, and it was just something really cool. And we know, and you know what? They were honest and transparent. At least I think they were, right? They talked about how they had some twisted teas and yeah, they and some other thing. And it just like it made me. It's one of the best parts about um, growing up with your children, I think. And honestly, I
Mhm.
can't wait till I can take them to a dinner and have a drink with them and just kind of reflect on all the opportunities that I failed on for, bringing them up. And so it's a really special thing. And again, as hard as it is to have some of those conversations, um it's magical what it does to like. And again, I still have some things I have to be open with them on, right? Maybe
Mhm.
when they turn 18 or maybe it's 21, I don't know what the age appropriate for some of the stuff I've done in my life, but
Right.
um I just it is one of the most magical parts of growing up, especially from a dad to a daughter.
Mm.
Mhm.
I have to
I
ask
love
some
that.
further questions. I mean, how did you handle the sex conversation of
Uh,
that?
Yeah, so my wife was super critical in that and really guided a lot of that conversation. All I could tell her is from a boy's experience, and I think that's pretty well known what boys are after most all the time. And so, stinky, stupid, and dumb. That's how I describe boys to my wife or to my wife and my girls. And so, um, yeah, I mean, as long as they know that from my perspective, and then mama can handle the rest from everything else that happens from a feminine perspective. And I
Yeah.
do take my statement back. I don't know anything about
Mm.
perspective.
Kate, what about you? Do you share your wild times? You said age appropriate.
Age appropriate, age appropriate, always. And as they get older and older, I have a terrible memory, so I don't always remember everything. They sometimes hear it from other people. Like, so I've had friends or siblings, they'll be like, oh, do you want to hear a story about your mom being drunk and jumping out of a trunk? And they'll be like, yes. And you're like, okay, here you go. You know, and so they certainly have all known that I had some wild times. The biggest thing that I like try to do as they age is try to move into a role of no judgment, like, so because at 17, 18, 19, they're getting their power, and they have, the truth is I can't control any of it, any of it. So it's such a hard pill to swallow. But what I've done, at least with our older ones, is I've said, I can't parent you anymore. Like that doesn't work. But I'm always here for you for support, and I will do my damnedest not to judge you. So I want you to tell me everything that you feel comfortable telling me, and if you don't feel comfortable tell me, fine, find somebody else. But at the end of the day, I'm your mom and I'm always here for you. But my role has to change, and that's just the reality of it, and so so far they're talking, they're telling us all the things, and working really hard to not judge. It's really hard when my 19-year-old calls me and is like, well, oh yeah, well, so, well, I wasn't exactly sober, and I'm like, okay. And so how did you get there, buddy? He's like, oh, well, I drove, I'm like, okay, all right, let's talk, like, and you have to like remember that you all did that shit, and yeah, it's super dangerous and you're putting other people at risk, but like, you know, are they gonna learn if I just, tell them how horrible that is and shut them out and not, want them, make them not want to talk to me anymore? No, so it's a huge balance, but that's what I've tried to do. And
And I think that's where those reflective questions become very important. It's like, okay, so it sounds like nothing happened this time. What would you do if something happened the next time? Like, let's think through that. And so I think that's why those critical questions, the open-ended questions of getting them to think through the consequences for them to have that aha moment versus us trying to drive it into them, really helps. But I want to go into the last question, which really sort of feeds into this.
There's more.
As we're looking at ahead, how do we envision our lifestyle evolving as our children are growing older? Do you think there will be a resurgence of wild nights, or will you focus remain on family life? So as you're thinking about the kids and them getting older in the state that you guys are talking about, I thought it was really good, Adam, talking about the 17-year-olds and preparing them for things as they're starting to get older and they go out of the nest. How does that change us as well, in how it is? And I think, Cate, you talked a little bit about this as well, but what are the things we need to do that need to change? And if I could add just one thing on how I know that I will change, is that I will need to become less of a parent, and I will need to become more of a equal. Because I think sometimes as our kids are growing, we sometimes continue to try to parent them when in actuality we need to respect them and respect their thoughts and the choices that they make. And that is, I think, the hardest thing as they continue to grow, is continuing to honor them. And so, Jen, I can see you itching to
Honoring?
Yeah.
Well, it's just so my kid likes to play games, and obviously doesn't dance with me on videos. Like, we don't do the same stuff. So, but I play games with him, and we just finished It Takes Two, and then last night we were playing Donkey Kong Mario, and it's this thing where it's like a team thing, right? And it was wild because last night I literally had this moment of what you're talking about. I was like, Brayson, stay where you're at. I'm going to go this way. And I'm trying to put out the plan quickly so that we can beat the timer and like win, like, right. I'm in the moment. And I'm like, Brayson, and he just keeps moving. I'm like, Brayson, stop. And right. And then in my brain at the very moment, I was like, there's going to be a time where mommy's not going to be the one taking us to safety. It will be my child, who I will be listening to him as an adult. So there is going to be a transition, and I'm ready for it. I'm not ready for it, but I'm trying my best to prepare for it. Like I talk to him a lot about, when you replace me one day with your magical woman, oh no, please just remember me. Like I always tell my husband, I was like, we needed a daughter. Please, you know what I mean? Like the maternal parents always get everything. So I do though. The conversations that I have with my kiddo are very much, we are different. We are going to do different things all the time. But my job is just to make sure that you are healthy, successful, and happy. And the only way to do that is to guide you with the tools that you can then make choices that will literally lay out what your future looks like. So whatever the conversation, if I don't want you to feel as if you can't come to me for things, so the only way you're going to feel comfortable coming to me is if I truly know you throughout your life. And the only way I'm going to know you is if we keep talking. I don't care if you make me mad. I don't care if like we disagree on things. I have to know you so that when you come to me and ask for advice, I'm giving you advice based on you and your true personality. So the shut doors, like I really hope that doesn't happen, but I know it will. But I'm trying to, the conversations we have, again, with the talking of mistakes and talking how I've messed up. I tell my kiddo all the time about mommy mistakes. And like, I really, it was hard for me to forgive myself for it. That's why I'm just letting you know. If you want that feeling, go ahead, by all means. But just kind of playing out the things that I've done, the things that I've done that are great, and it's kind of like, find your way in that. But he'll open up and talk to me about things. And sometimes I'm like, did this 9-year-old just make me feel better? Like, I literally give my best little dude right now. I just love that kid so much because they really will speak to you in a way that is somewhat, you learn to love yourself a little better through your kid's eyes, truly.
Mhm.
You know what I mean? And so if you can go back and forth with that, I really just think the communication is the only thing I have control over. How I talk to my kid, how I keep my door open for my kid, how I forgive my kid, how I forgive myself, yes, we apologize to each other, but we really, truly, this is what it is for me. And again, we're different. So I don't know. I don't know.
Yeah.
I'm trying to brace for it. Again, it's trial and error. We'll look back and be like, yeah, that was wrong.
Right.
Adam, what are you thinking?
Yeah, so Miss Jen just spurred a lot of thoughts when she said your kid's eyes. She just reminded me. So I'm reading a book right now. It's called How to Get to Know People by Daniel Brooks, and it is killer. And he talks about when a baby is born, that they're nearsighted and all they can see is like what's right in front of them, and the world beyond them is gray or blurred out. And then as kids begin to develop, they start to see the things beyond, and then and then they realize that they're their own human being.
Yeah.
And so, like at 2, and then they start telling you no, like blah, blah, like, and so I firmly believe there's like this reincarnated other iteration of that process where it's like, okay, and then like after you hit 4 or 5, the kids are like back to you, right? Like, oh, I idolize you so much. Even into 9, like they still kind of idolize
I'm gonna live
you.
with you forever.
But yeah, I hope that happens for you. It didn't for me. But and then it's like this 12, 13 where it's like this like now they're seeing the world and the friends become the most important thing. And um and then I supposedly at 20 something they come back, and I guess it's a really hard conversation for me because I didn't have any of that, right? Like I just like I didn't have a male role model that was going to sit me down and guide me and show me, and my like just life kind of fell together, if you will. And so one of the things that we just started like 6 months ago is having future talks with our kids. That's what we call them. We take them to a breakfast, a lunch, or a dinner, and we sit them down. And I literally just drew a line on the page, 0 to 100, and I said, "Here's 17. This is where you are. You have all these 80 odd ish years left to live your life. And so, how are you going to design that life? Like, what is that going to look like for you? What do you want? Like, and just started asking a bunch of questions. Oh, I want to go to college. I want to be a lawyer. I want to have 3 kids." And it's like, okay, well, where is this going to fit in your life? Because again, from I didn't have that. Like, go to high school, go to college, get a job, like that was all just kind of like what was supposed to happen. And thankfully, like I fell into a amazing family, wife. My children are super awesome. Like God has really taken great care of me. But and so preparing them for their future. And I think I just learned something huge from Cate when she said, "I can't parent you anymore." And then Sarah, you echoed it. And so it just, at some point they're not running behind you, they're running with
In
you.
front. Yeah.
Well, and then, yeah,
Sometimes in front.
absolutely, I'm going to slow down and they're going to be running in front, like you said, protecting the family. And so to me, it's just preparing them as best as we can with the information that we have, and possibly even the things that we never did have.
Yeah. I think that that's great. I also want to be mindful of the time. I know we're coming upon the top of the hour as well. And so I want to pull up a couple of comments that have come in. So for me, age appropriate means if they're dealing with it, it's
Yes.
appropriate.
Exactly.
Or if they're about to deal with it. Yes.
Yes. I
Yeah.
like that. And then fortunately, unfortunately, my daughter has a drunk for a dad and has zero interest in ever drinking. She's hyper aware of how she's treated when he's drinking and doesn't think it's very rad.
Yeah.
For me, I think, when kids are dealing with those types of things. I know, Kate, you and I had to deal with sexual abuse. So those types of things that we had to deal with, sometimes you go to extremes. So I think it's also important, a part of those things, to also think about moderation in teaching kids, also moderation with things, or being respectful of themselves. Because even though, with drinking, sometimes kids will immediately go away, and then sometimes later on in life it'll come back in their life, and then it will go the opposite way. So I think teaching healthy aspects of whatever it is, for me it had to do with sex, so being sexually abused, I was like, didn't want to, and then later on in life I was like went wild when it came to it. And so so there's pros and cons to that. Like, it allowed me to be able to self-discover and really figure me out. It also had some negative consequences to it as well. And so for me, it is also learning those things and dealing with some of those negative things that happen in life, and understanding that sometimes when those negative things happen, it can become an extreme on one side or the other.
Can I get into that too? Like, because again, like everybody's situation is very relative to them, their environment, what's happening with their kids. So I feel like, I know like all four of us have totally different ways that we do things in our household. And it's basically on our own talk through, on our own trial and error. So if you're listening to someone and feeling like you can get advice to take for yourself, it's not what they're doing. It's the whole skeleton of why they're doing what they're doing. Like, you have to trial and error everything to figure out your daughter's relationship with alcohol, or her relationship with people who drink alcohol, right? So all that stuff will be trial and error, and I wouldn't even know what to do unless I talked through my thoughts and had the thing going through. But I mean, that'll be something. But yeah, she'll definitely, she'll have her thoughts about people who drink or get too drunk, or people that, so not only just her relationship with alcohol, but people who drink alcohol. So
I think what I'm taking out of this is like, we have to close the story for the children. We cannot allow the children to close the story on their own. And so, and a lot of times, like the people who are causing or producing the story don't have an opportunity to close it or bring a conclusion. And so how can we help close the story for the children, whether it's alcohol, a towel on the floor, or they're biting somebody, right? Because all of us are a bunch of kids as a like in the human as adults,
children,
kids without closed stories. So repair.
Sure.
So I know I want to be mindful of our time. I know we have some hard stops here. Kate, I would like to give you a final word in closing us out for today. And I want to just thank you both for joining us and for the interaction. I loved it. I think this is, a good combo. We should find another topic and come back later on.
I'd love it. We need more time.
I know. So thank you guys so much for joining us. Thanks for the interaction from the audience. And Kate, I'm going to turn it over to you to close and wrap things up.
Thank you so much. Thank you guys for all of you being here. This has been such a fun conversation, and I think everyone, I feel it, and I'm sure the audience feels it as well. We have like 10 million more things that we want to talk about on this topic, right? And I think that's because what we have here is a collection of 4 parents that just really love deeply and want to do the very best that they possibly can, and realizing that it's a journey. And I think that's what it's all about. It's all about love and doing that in a way that's going to really honor everyone around you. And there's just nothing more badass than that. So
I love it. Everybody have an amazing Friday, and we will see you next week as we're going to be talking about a balancing act. So harmony, and it's our 69th episode, which is all about balancing.
Well, that's pretty wild.
I know. Some of the yin and yang in life, and maybe a little 69.
You just had to.
She just had to. And she froze. Oh!
That's awesome. You can't design that any better. Oh my goodness.
Oh my
That's
God.
And
Yeah.
she's back.
You're back. You
Uh,
froze right when you said it.
I've had a ton of fun